late-night television just got hit with a bombshell. Jimmy Kimmel, one of the biggest names in comedy, has been yanked off the air indefinitely. What started as a single line in his monologue spiraled into a political firestorm, FCC involvement, and one of the fastest takedowns of a late-night host we've ever seen. So how did one joke push an entire network to pull the plug? And who's really behind this decision? Let's break it down. On Monday night, Jimmy Kimmel walked onto his stage the same way he's done for over 2 decades. But this monologue, it was different. Instead of the usual lighthearted jokes, Kimmel's tone turned sharp. He dove straight into the shocking assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. And then he went after the MAGA movement. His exact words lit the fuse. We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. Now, depending on how you hear that, it could mean 2 very different things. Some argued Kimmel was mocking the political spin surrounding the tragedy, that he was pointing out hypocrisy in how conservatives were framing the suspect, but others, especially critics on the right, insisted Kimmel was outright accusing Kirk's suspected killer of being a pro-Trump Republican, a claim that hadn't been proven. That's the danger of live comedy mixed with politics. Interpretation can become the spark for outrage. And in today's climate, outrage doesn't stay online for long. While plenty of late-night hosts have delivered risky jokes, this one didn't just trend on Twitter. It drew the attention of powerful figures in Washington. And that's when the story jumped from a comedy stage straight into the hands of the FCC. It didn't take long for Washington to notice. Within hours, FCC Chairman Brendan Carr, a figure closely tied to Trump allies, went public, slamming Kimmel's remarks. On a far-right webcast, Carr didn't mince words. He called Kimmel's monologue some of the sickest conduct possible and suggested ABC should suspend him immediately. But Carr didn't stop at moral outrage. He hinted at regulatory consequences for Disney, ABC's parent company. Carr reminded everyone that broadcast licenses come directly from the FCC and that networks have what he described as an obligation to operate in the public interest. It wasn't just criticism, it was a veiled threat. Fix this or face consequences. That's not the kind of warning you typically hear aimed at a late-night comedian. And for Kimmel, it meant his monologue wasn't just another headline anymore. It had become a federal issue. And just when it seemed like the pressure couldn't get any heavier, one of the most powerful media groups in the country decided to make its move. Nexstar Media Group, the largest owner of local TV stations in America, became the first domino to fall. With 32 ABC affiliates under its control, Nexstar didn't just complain about Kimmel's remarks. They flat out refused to air his show. Andrew Alford, Nexstar's broadcasting president, released a blunt statement calling Kimmel's comments offensive and insensitive at a critical time in our national political discourse. And here's why this was such a big deal. When one local station boycotts a program, it's a headache. But when the largest affiliate group revolts, covering dozens of key markets across the US, the entire network feels the pressure instantly. Disney executives knew the math. Without affiliates, the show couldn't reach millions of households. The writing was on the wall. And that's when Disney, the ultimate decision maker, stepped in with a move that shook Hollywood to its core. When Nexstar dropped the hammer, Disney had a choice: stand behind their late-night star and risk a standoff with affiliates, advertisers, and regulators, or cut their losses quickly. They chose the latter. Within hours of Nexstar's announcement, Disney confirmed what no one thought they'd hear. Jimmy Kimmel Live was being preempted indefinitely. That word, indefinite, carries weight. It's not a vacation break, it's not a slap on the wrist, it's a suspension without a timeline, without guarantees, and without a clear path back. For a late-night staple that had been running since 2003, this was unprecedented. Even more shocking was the speed. Kimmel's monologue aired Monday night. By Tuesday, Brendan Carr had gone on the attack. By Wednesday, affiliates revolted. And by that same evening, Disney pulled the trigger, less than 48 hours from a monologue to blackout. Executives insisted this wasn't about politics, but about responsibility. Still, everyone could see the pressure points. Affiliates refusing to air the show, conservative voices threatening boycotts, regulators hinting at punishment. The decision may have been framed as a business move, but the political undertones were impossible to ignore. Late-night comedy has always been about pushing boundaries. From Johnny Carson's sly jabs to Stephen Colbert's sharp monologues, the tradition is built on saying the things politicians don't want to hear. By yanking Kimmel, Disney sent a chilling message. Those boundaries might be closing in. Insiders noted that when a network says indefinite suspension, it often signals the beginning of the end. Advertisers crave stability, and networks can't afford long-term uncertainty. Each day Kimmel stays off the air makes his comeback less likely. Meanwhile, Disney itself has been under political fire, facing repeated clashes with conservative leaders. Pulling Kimmel might have been an attempt to ease that pressure, but in doing so, Disney created a bigger storm, one about censorship, political influence, and the survival of comedy itself. In just 2 days, Jimmy Kimmel went from hosting one of the most recognizable shows in late night to being silenced by his own network. Fans were stunned, critics smelled blood, and other comedians began wondering, if Kimmel can be taken down this fast, who's next? But here's the thing, this wasn't just about one comment. For months, maybe even years, the writing had been on the wall. Jimmy Kimmel has never hidden his political stance. From mocking Trump during his presidency to taking shots at MAGA rallies, his monologues regularly lean into sharp political commentary. To his fans, that's the charm. To his critics, it's provocation. But in 2025, that tension reached new levels. Earlier this year, Donald Trump himself predicted that Kimmel would be the next to go, calling him less talented than Stephen Colbert, who had faced his own controversy months earlier. At the time, most brushed it off as typical Trump banter, but in hindsight, it looks more like a warning shot. When Kimmel's Charlie Kirk remarks aired, conservative voices didn't just express outrage, they mobilized. Fox News highlighted the clip. Conservative influencers blasted it across X and TikTok. Hashtags demanding Kimmel's firing went viral overnight. What's more telling is how quickly the FCC picked up on it. CNN noted that the controversy barely registered at first. For nearly a full day, there wasn't much chatter. Then Brendan Carr appeared on a webcast, condemned Kimmel, and threatened regulatory review. Hours later, Nexstar pulled out. By nightfall, Disney caved. That timing has fueled speculation that this wasn't organic outrage. Instead, it looked coordinated, a political takedown with precision timing. From Trump's earlier prediction to Carr's sudden intervention, the dots connect in ways that make the story feel bigger than one late-night host. And it wouldn't be the first time politics collided with entertainment. We've seen advertisers drop stars like Roseanne Barr, networks cut ties with controversial talent, and comedians like Bill Maher nearly lose platforms over risky remarks. But rarely has it happened this fast. For Kimmel, the pressure has always been part of the job. But this time, it wasn't just angry viewers or harsh critics. It was affiliates, executives, and government figures all at once. And in today's cutthroat climate, that combination is enough to topple anyone. Which brings us to the real heart of this fight. Is this about a single offensive joke? The fallout from Kimmel's suspension has reignited one of the most heated debates in American culture. Where is the line between free speech and cancel culture? Jimmy Kimmel doesn't have a First Amendment claim against ABC. They're a private company, and they can suspend, fire, or replace him if they choose. The Constitution protects speech from government restriction, not corporate discipline. But here's where things get murkier. The FCC is a government body, and when its chairman directly calls out a comedian and pressures a network, critics argue that crosses into dangerous territory. The government may not have fired Kimmel, but its involvement arguably nudged Disney into acting. That makes this more than a private business decision. It makes it a question of government interference in culture. To some, that's proof this is cancel culture at its worst. Political pressure silencing a comedian. To others, it's accountability. Kimmel crossed a line, mocking the death of a political figure, and the network acted responsibly. But here's the irony. Late-night comedy has always thrived on pushing boundaries. Lenny Bruce was arrested for obscenity. George Carlin was banned for his 7 dirty words. Even Jon Stewart faced heavy criticism for mocking politicians. In every era, comedians walked the line between commentary and controversy. The difference is, back then, it took months or years for consequences to play out. In 2025, it takes less than 2 days. And that's what has many worried. If Jimmy Kimmel can be silenced this fast, with affiliates, executives, and regulators aligned against him, what does that mean for the future of comedy? Will every late-night joke now go through a political filter? Will networks water down their hosts to avoid another firestorm? The Kimmel case has become a flashpoint. For some, it's proof that cancel culture has gone too far. For others, it's a reminder that free speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences. But no matter which side you land on, one thing is undeniable. The line between comedy and controversy has never been thinner. Which leaves one final question: what happens next for Jimmy Kimmel? And for late-night TV itself? Right now, Jimmy Kimmel has gone silent. No press statements, no tweets, no monologues. For a comedian who built his career on speaking his mind, that silence speaks volumes. Indefinite suspension almost never ends neatly. Networks rarely sit on uncertainty for long. Either Kimmel quietly returns after the storm dies down, or ABC starts grooming a replacement. The longer he's off air, the slimmer his chances of coming back, but Kimmel isn't without options. In today's media world, a network isn't the only stage. He could launch a streaming show, start a podcast, or even join platforms like Netflix or YouTube where restrictions are looser. If anything, this controversy could push him toward more creative freedom than ABC ever allowed. For Disney, though, the stakes are bigger. By pulling Kimmel, they set a precedent. If regulators or political figures can influence which comedians stay on air, no host is safe. The chilling effect is real, and rivals like Colbert, Fallon, and Myers are no doubt watching closely. So what happens next? Does Kimmel fade quietly into the background, or does he reemerge louder than ever on a new platform? Does ABC prove it bowed to political pressure, or will it frame this as a business decision to protect viewers? And the biggest question of all, is late-night comedy itself now under threat? One thing is certain, this story isn't over. Whether you love him or hate him, Jimmy Kimmel has become the face of a much larger battle. A battle that could redefine not only comedy, but the very limits of free speech in American entertainment.